Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grip Locked, Foundation Disc Golf's weekly podcast. I'm Hunter, joined as always by Trevor, and it is finally the last show, the last day of 2020. It is actually, when you're listening to this, if you listen to it the day it dropped, is the 31st.
Yes.
It's actually the official last day.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a year.
What a year. Not on the sponsorship front, there's been some announcements. There's still a lot of big question marks out there. But it has been made official. James Conrad has announced that he is officially leaving Innova. Which, you know, if you go back to our podcast previously, you can see where we speculated this. Mm-hmm. It's looking like he's going to go to MVP. I saw some Facebook comments suggesting that they saw him out at Iron Hill in Delaware throwing gyroplastic.
Oh, I didn't even know about that.
On top of the fact that his van was at the MVP headquarters. So
sure smells like MVP.
We also have a tweet responding to my personal Twitter of Jordan Castro saying JC squared and then my lips are sealed emoji.
Whoa.
And Jordan Castro is with MVP. So to me, all signs are pointing MVP, but it is not official yet. There's still yet to be an announcement.
I think that's exciting to see. That'll be the best pro we've ever seen throwing MVP plastic. I feel like we're really going to learn something about MVP plastic.
Yeah, it's going to really show is James Conrad throwing 50% farther?
You know what Dave Feldberg said it himself. The rollers go 1% to 2% further with gyro technology. Yeah,
so it's not official yet. There's, some people on Twitter were responding to me thinking that he's going to Trilogy Dynamic Discs. If I was a betting man, I would bet a lot of money that he's going to MVP. But we won't know until he officially announces. According to UltiWorld, it looks like that is going to be a few weeks from now. Mm-hmm. But we can officially say he has left Innova. He has officially announced he's gone from Innova. Another thing that has kind of put some of the rumors to rest is Calvin Heimberg has announced an extension through 2022 with Innova.
That was huge for them.
I agree. Originally, his contract was supposed to run up in 2021.
Right.
So he signed an early additional year extension onto that.
Heimberg is so good.
With Innova losing Thomas Gilbert and now James Conrad, and there were rumors about Heimberg on Facebook. They could not have afforded to lose Heimberg.
Yeah, that would have been crippling.
Yeah. One other person, this is just the end of a day right now. Right. Another person leaving is Alexis Mandujano, one of the Mandujano sisters. This in and of itself, just her leaving, is not a huge deal, her leaving Innova. But I do think if her sister leaves with her, that is a big deal.
Right.
Because
it could be a case if she has a year left on her contract, then follows her or something like that.
We don't know where Alexis is going. But if her sister Valerie follows her, I do think that will be a pretty big deal because between both of them, that's a pretty big future of FPO, in my opinion. Valerie is already one of the top FPO players. I would personally I'll put Valerie in my top 10, I think.
Yeah, I'd say she's about top 10.
Yeah.
She's just only playing in Texas,
right?
Yeah,
she just doesn't really tour.
Yeah.
When she does tour, you'll find her on lead cards. You'll find her shooting some hot rounds. Mm-hmm. She doesn't really mess around. So Alexis leaving in and of itself, not a huge story because Innova was able to re-up a lot of great European FPO players.
Right. Yeah.
But if Valerie leaves with her, this turns into a little bit more of a bigger story. Sure. Now, this also brought up a question I wanted to ask before we got into some other topics. With all of this news, right, coming in with these sponsors, with Innova losing all these players, do you think that Innova right now, 2020, is this a loss, like a losing year for Innova? Or do you think it's a winning year? They have been able to sign a lot of extensions with Big Germ, Nate Sexton, Double G, now Calvin Heimberg. Is that enough to make it a winning year, or do you think losing some of these players makes it a losing year?
Well, Innova's in an interesting spot because a lot of the players they have in their defense, and what helps them is they have a lot of very likable players. I mean, in disc golf, there's not a lot of unlikable players. It seems like that's just a trend of the sport. But Nate and Germ, because of their Jomez thing, and just in general, they're pretty nice guys. They're beloved.
Yeah.
So having them is huge. Although when people, it's actually got to the point where when people think of Nate and Germ, they literally think Jomez. They don't think Innova. So that's kind of interesting.
That is a good point.
So because that's overshadowed their play. That's the one thing about the commentating thing. And I think those guys are smart enough to know that they're playing, they're up there in age. Their playing days aren't, especially playing days.
They're playing the long game right now.
Right. They're thinking, let's be the ones who are the popular commentators. And it's worked for them. They've been on ESPN now. So, and CBS. So I think that's the thing, but they have a lot of beloved players. Heimberg and Ricky are obviously their two hot shots on the MPO side. And they're two of probably arguably they're both top 5 players. Yeah. So like when you think of it that way, they have 2 top 5 players. You know, it's just because those two aren't quite as marketable, maybe, especially Calvin. Calvin is a player who has yet to really capitalize on his marketability. Calvin is like a top 3 player, honestly.
I would put Ricky in the top 3 right now. I think Ricky, Paul, Calvin are pretty much my top 3
Ricky
right now.
Ricky and Eagle are probably pretty interchangeable there.
Yeah.
And maybe even
on the MPO side, it's very tough because realistically you have Ricky, Calvin, Paul, Chris Dickerson, Kevin Jones, Eagle.
Yeah.
All in that conversation for a top 5 spot.
In any case, Calvin, super good and only getting better, still really early in his career. I think if Innova can figure out how to get the most, because here's something people forget, is that when Paul first played with Innova, he was not some big marketable personality. Very camera shy. It took him a while to kind of come into his own, and a lot of that has to do with his own, personality and kind of getting more comfortable with that kind of thing. But I'm not sure if Innova deserves any credit for what Paul became as far as marketability wise, but if they could repeat that with Calvin somehow, like that could be huge. Like he's still a sleeping giant.
I think part of it with Paul was his domination on the course.
It's true.
Because that put him in front of the camera more. It gave him more interview opportunities, all of that.
Right.
That is something that with Ricky, we've even seen a little bit. Ricky is still...
He's improved a bit, yeah.
Yeah, he has improved his marketability. If you go back several years, Ricky in front of the camera being interviewed is a much different Ricky than now.
Yeah.
Is Ricky the best camera personality in disc golf right now? No. But has he improved drastically over where he was back, around the same time period as Paul, like 2013, 2012? Yeah, he's improved drastically. He's a lot more marketable right now than he was back then. And that could be a trend we see with Calvin Heimberg as well. I think that is a good point. The more you seem to be in front of the camera, the more marketable you become. For me, though, I think this is still a losing year for Innova currently.
It is. I mean, what did they gain other than extensions?
That's what I'm saying.
You should be expected to keep your players.
The list that I found that they lost was they lost Conrad, Gilbert, Sarah Sinclair, Scott Withers, and Alexis Mandujano. They've signed some big extensions as we talked, but they haven't gained any players.
Yeah, as I say, I don't think it's huge. Like Conrad's a loss, but like I don't think there's huge losses there. Like those are kind of just like expected losses because that's just how the game works. People go back and forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, the problem is they haven't made a big signing, and there's nobody that I can think of that's on the table, right?
I disagree. I think that if they sign Ezra Aderhold, this turns into a winning year for them, because I think Ezra by himself has enough pull to make up for all those losses.
Yeah, I agree. That would definitely break them even at least.
Yeah, because I'm looking at these names,
but the year's over. So,
well, yeah, technically, but the
off-season.
Ezra hasn't announced yet.
As far as an off-season,
so we still don't know where Ezra's gonna end up.
Right.
He could announce tomorrow, or by the time this podcast comes out, our listeners that
that tends to happen.
What tends to happen is we talk about something on this podcast that hasn't happened yet because we recorded a day in advance, and between when we record this podcast and when we publish it, that gets announced.
What was the last one that just happened?
Heimberg. We were talking about Heimberg. How there were some rumors
and then
online.
He's extended.
And I had to cut it out of the podcast.
Yeah.
Because we mentioned it for like 30 seconds. And then he signed the extension literally after, like, I was leaving the office Wednesday, and he signed the extension. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
But I do think Ezra, the only person I think on that list that it could be argued to move plastic more is James Conrad over an Ezra Aderhold. But I think Ezra would be a big enough signing for the future of Innova that I don't think that... I think that would make it a winning year for them, because I think that one pickup would balance them out on all their losses.
I think so, yeah.
There's no real evidence of him going to Innova, but then again, there's no real evidence of him going anywhere yet.
It's true.
He was in a video with Brody throwing only zones, but he also made several like comments and weird, not really weird things, but things happened during that video that kind of led you to think like Discraft wasn't it, but he was also throwing only zones in that video, so that could be it. He obviously has ties to Discmania. He threw a lot of Discmania in his bag, which also could mean Innova as well. I wouldn't be surprised if DD picked him up, just because I think they're going to be looking for someone, because that's someone we haven't really heard much from.
They're starving for a player. They have to be.
We haven't heard much from them this year. I know they signed some extensions with like a Miles Seaborn and stuff like that, but
I mean, yeah, they make nice plastic, and they are very popular in Texas.
Yeah.
But they're just kind of hanging around. I mean, they've had their shot
Yeah.
with like really good players, and they just haven't been able to hold them.
Well, I think the thing is like, what's tough is it seems like the best players that have went to or are currently at Trilogy go to Latitude. Why that is, I don't know, but that's where Ricky was. That's where Emerson Keith currently is. You could argue Nico, but he's at Westside. Like, what's confusing to me is why are these players signing with, I mean, obviously they're going to have relationships with DD because it's Trilogy, but why are they signing with the overseas, like the Swedish and Westside, or is Latitude Swedish actually?
Latitude.
And Westside something else? Finnish maybe? I don't know.
One of them is Finnish, I believe.
Westside, I think, is Finnish.
I think they just have a lot more money. I think they have a lot of money from the European market, and that's why they just have more to offer the players.
That's just crazy to me because, well, I guess Dynamic is technically, I guess they're all technically different companies, but they're just all manufactured in the same spot. But you would just think that Dynamic would kind of be able to land someone like that because they're clearly ready to throw their plastic because they're throwing Latitude or Westside. But they're going to Latitude or Westside over Dynamic when, personally, I feel like Dynamic is the most marketable of those three.
Yeah, and Dynamic has really done a good job with their marketing, too.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Well, yeah. Yes and no. Because I think part of the issue with...
Their company they have.
Yes. But I think part of the issue is, like, when you think of Dynamic, you almost know the name Cool Daddy Slick Breeze as much as you know Eric Oakley and AJ Risley.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know Robert McCall as much as you know Zach Melton.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So they've done a great job marketing their company, which I think is a good thing because those employees aren't going anywhere, whereas your Zach Meltons, your Chris Clemens, they might. But on the flip side of that coin, I don't know if as a manufacturer you want employees to almost be more well-known than players.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach, and I have noticed that. And it's like their events have more notoriety than their players as well.
Yeah.
Like, everybody knows about Glass Blown.
And I don't even know if it's by design. It might just be that, like...
Yeah, I don't know.
Cool Daddy Slick Breeze is just that much better in front of cameras. I don't think that's true, because Zach Melton, if you meet him in person, is hilarious.
He's
I feel
really
like
funny on Twitter as
you
well.
continually get that guy in front of a camera or, like, marketing him. Like, I feel like you could market Zach Melton very easily. Another thing that was on my mind and just slipped. Oh, another sponsorship kind of change that we saw I didn't list was Drew Gibson.
Right.
He didn't change sponsors. He's staying with Infinite Disc, but he has broken his partnership with Legacy.
Yeah.
Which is a little confusing to me because what was his partnership with Legacy to even begin with?
I think it was like he had a disc deal with them, right? Like he had like a signature disc with them.
Yeah, he had the Phantom Warrior?
Something like that. I think that's what he had, but I'm not sure if it was anything more than that. And I also know that in like when he was kind of interacting with the comments on like his post about that, and there was a lot of people suggesting certain brands, and he was kind of making it seem like, at least with Discmania and Discraft, and I think even Innova, none of those three like wanted to do something along those lines. Like they're kind of like all or nothing.
Well, so what's weird to me is like Legacy ran him the signature disc, right? And then I don't know what they expected in return. Because, you know, in his comment section, he called out Discraft. You remember what he said more than me.
He said something along the lines of, somebody asked about a partnership with Discraft, and he said, no, Discraft is stuck in the 80s. That's what he said. He said they are not looking for the type of partnership that he wants, and he also mentioned they would probably sell 1 million buzzes, though, something like that.
Yeah, so that's what's confusing to me, is what is this partnership he's looking for from companies? Because why, if I'm Discraft...
I think he's just trying to run signature discs, but
that's
not
what I'm
be
saying,
sponsored by somebody entirely.
If I'm Discraft and a player is coming to me wanting to run just a signature disc through me, but like why would I ever say yes to that unless the player's buying the disc from me?
Right.
Like, that makes no sense to me.
Well, his point is that he can move more of that disc with when it has his name attached to it, I think. But that's not true.
But then why wouldn't he just buy that disc? Why doesn't Gibson Industries just do a signature run of whatever?
Yeah, I don't know.
And I don't know. Because when I read that comment, and it was very confusing to me because I'm like, what is this partnership you're looking for? If it's just a signature disc, buy it and run it. If it's Discraft sponsors my mid ranges and I can throw whatever I want for fairways and drivers. If I'm Discraft, again, why am I interested in that? What does that bring me?
Yeah.
Like, why would I pay a player to only have them carry a few molds in their bag? Because then that's like I'm saying, well, the rest of these molds we carry aren't great. So you can throw whatever you want, but here's this.
Right.
I just don't think that model works for disc golf. I don't think that makes any sense.
I don't think so either.
Maybe I'm stuck in the 80s, but or Drew Gibson might say so.
Yeah.
I just don't get where he's coming from with that. Obviously, we don't know what the deal is he's looking for, but I think the whole like driver, iron, whatever thing comes from golf, right? Like some players have that.
It does, but it doesn't. Like it's not very common. So like I don't think what he's after really like has a place in the sport ever.
Well, that's what I'm saying is like in golf, you know, we were talking about this some earlier today, and you were mentioning like some companies are known for their irons, and they might make drivers, but that's not what they're trying to push.
Yeah, there's a few companies, but they're less known ones, like your TaylorMade, your Callaway, your Titleist, and it used to be Nike when they still made clubs. The big dogs, you're using their clubs all the way through if you're playing their clubs.
Yeah.
Now, those companies will some of them will let you play other golf balls.
Yeah, because that's a different thing.
Ricky Fowler and Bubba Watson. Bubba Watson plays Ping. Ricky plays Cobra. They'll both play Pro V1s though, because those companies don't make a flagship golf ball that they
that's
want
like
the pros to market.
In disc golf, I think that's more the equivalent of Paul throwing Discraft discs but carrying a grip bag.
Right, exactly. So, but like as far as actual differences in clubs, there's only a handful. I know Srixon had some players on staff. Smiley Coffin was one of them that they allowed them to carry. If you want to use a different driver, because we don't really make a great driver, we just make really great irons. And if you want to carry different wedges, I think some of them too. I think he had like Srixon irons and he had like Titleist wedges, and I want to say he had like a Callaway driver at one point. They were fine with that because they're like, we're really just trying to sell irons we know that if you're going to be winning on tour, our driver and our wedges, like they're not the best.
Yeah.
So like that happens, but it's not super frequent. And the top dogs, which you could argue in disc golf, really, you know, the big like Trilogy, Discmania, Innova, Discraft, like the big dogs in Discraft, like they don't have gaps in their lineup.
That's what I'm saying is,
so like it shouldn't exist.
If I'm Drew Gibson and I'm like saying a company's stuck in the 80s, or I'm still trying to figure out what he's saying.
Yeah.
Is it that? Like but if it is that scenario, what are you expecting? Because if any company, Discraft, Innova, Dynamic, like they all have full lineups. Like
that's
you mentioned,
what I'm saying. Like
it's not like a Nico situation where he's with Daredevil discs
and they only have a few molds.
They only have a few molds, so he throws those molds and then fills the gaps with other companies.
Right, that makes sense. But it's like coming to Discraft, being like, well, I'm going to throw your buzzes, but I'll only throw those because you don't really have other spots that I need. When of course they do.
Yeah,
like, guys have won
or
world championships.
Even if
those.
he doesn't like the Force Zeus or whatever, no company is going to be like, yeah, I'll pay you to just have the buzz in your bag. Yeah. Or the Innova's not going to be like, yeah, I'll pay you to just throw my destroyer.
And the thing is, like, discs, you got to be all in for a company to move that company's discs. I think like discs aren't spotlighted enough.
Yeah.
To like when you're watching coverage, like you occasionally they are, but you're not typically gonna like know what a guy is throwing on every shot, and discs aren't gonna be spotlighted very much to like move that disc individually.
Yeah.
Occasionally they will, but not often.
Well, that's where I think the only companies, actually right now in disc golf, the only company that can do the deal that Drew is looking for is the company he's with, in Infinite.
Because they carry all the molds.
Well, they carry,
and they're not a manufacturer.
Well, they are a manufacturer, but they don't have a full lineup.
Right. They've got like what 3 or 4
So
discs.
you know, just he has to throw their 3 or 4 discs and then fill in the gap with the other manufacturers.
Yeah.
That is literally the only company on the market right now that I think Drew Gibson can get that deal with. I just don't see where it makes any sense for a Dynamic disc to be like, we'll pay you to throw the Truth, the Felon, and the whatever, but everything else you can do what you want.
Right.
I don't think that's being stuck in the 80s. Drew was probably just upset when he heard that.
Yeah, and I wonder what led him to leave Legacy. I'm sure he got that Legacy deal probably a lot because I'm sure he has connections with Steve Rico, and he's from California, so I'm sure he's got the connections there. But yeah, I'm curious if maybe he left Legacy seeking out a bigger deal and then just couldn't find it, or I don't know what's going through Drew Gibson's head half the time.
I don't either.
But he's very talented. Like Drew Gibson is still like, you know, on a lot of days, a top 10 player, finishing top 10 quite often. So like he's got value. There's like people would sign him.
I think the route he's going, it makes sense.
He's just very independent, like independent minded, I think.
Yeah, I think it kind of makes sense because I think his goal, from what I have seen, is I think he's trying to look for 3 or 4 different sponsors that when they're all put together make up more than he could get if he went to one company.
Right.
I just don't think you're ever going to find that in disc golf because everyone is making every disc they can.
Yeah.
So I just don't see that really happening. I just don't understand it, and I also don't get taking a shot at Discraft like that because, well, now good luck ever getting on their team.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't. I don't understand that aspect of it. I think there comes a time where as a player you almost have to be like I guess you could say like a politician, where you just have to kind of like
play it neutral.
Yeah, even if you're with a different company, you got to play it neutral because you might be with that company in the future.
Yeah, he must have been pretty hard rejected by all of them to get that.
I don't know. That wasn't even on my list. That came to my mind. But yeah, I think that players, when talking about other companies, have to be kind of cautious because you never want to say something really bad about a company, and then tomorrow you're dropped by your company and you're like, crap, all those companies are just bad-mouthed. I need them right now.
Burn your bridges.
Yeah, that's not unless you're like signed in for a lifetime deal and you know you're not going anywhere the rest of your career, then sure, burn all the bridges you want. But until then, you got to play it safe. You got to be smart. The final thing I want to talk about before we get into Trevor's trivia was on Twitter we had another take by Brody Smith himself. He called it a hot take. I don't really know if this is that much of a hot take because I think it's been talked about quite a bit. But he said, and I quote, "We back with another hot take. Really bad shots should be penalized more than bad shots. Hashtag stroke and distance." So I think this is a 2-part question here. And I asked him for a little bit more clarity on what he was explaining, what he was saying by saying really bad shots should be penalized more than bad shots. Because he later in another different tweet said, like, if you throw it 200 feet, if you throw a bad shot 200 feet offline, you should be penalized more than throwing a bad shot 100 feet offline.
Right.
And that kind of confused me. But first off, stroke and distance in general, good or bad for the sport, and why?
Definitely good because, well, good if it's implemented correctly, because I will say we already have problems with pace of play because the fields aren't being ratings capped and they're not as strong as they could be. Mm-hmm. So if you were to implement stroke and distance to the Pro Tour right now, the rounds would get even longer.
Yeah.
Because the early rounds with the lower rated players would be struggling. But long term, I think it needs to happen because disc golf is looking for as many ways to defend courses from really ridiculously low scores without adding gimmicks. And this is just a no-brainer way to do it. You're automatically going to make the course more difficult, and you literally have to do nothing to the course.
Yeah.
Except for maybe add OB if it wasn't already there. So it's a no-brainer in that sense. It adds instant pressure to a tee shot because the second you mess one up, you got to throw a different disc than you want. Like it changes the game completely. I don't think it's always necessary. And I'll hear more about what he kind of said, but I think on a whole, basically what we don't want to see is par threes. There's a lot of them in disc golf, obviously, where a shot is thrown, goes out of bounds, 30 feet. The guy gets to take like his OB relief 30 feet from the basket and just puts his par in. We want to see him be punished more for throwing that shot out of bounds, and players who maybe play safer be rewarded. So that's kind of the whole thing.
Yeah.
With stroke and distance.
So my take on it is that stroke and distance for the sport as a whole is bad, but for the Pro Tour specifically is good.
Right. Well, this is another Pro Tour specific
I think this
thing.
is something, and all of his takes are Pro Tour specific, but I think that this one in particular is something that it's not even a PDGA rule. This is a Pro Tour rule.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is... Or if you want to put it in majors
but
too.
See, yeah, the PDGA, like, it's not difficult for them to literally write in their rules that you have an option to do stroke and distance. Like, it's not.
But here's my thing: is if the PDGA had any interest in doing that, USDGC would be rated.
Yeah, I just don't know why.
If the PDGA ever had a care,
I don't know why they did. They don't. It's so simple. Just write a little rule that says, "Oh, and you have the option to do stroke and distance if you want."
But they clearly don't because USDGC, the ratings still don't count, which means
are they just being stubborn? Like I
don't know. I don't know. That's a whole different topic because there's other things that the PDGA has been stubborn on, which one of them was Ledgestone wanting to get the 950 minimum rating, and some reason they didn't do it. They did tiered registration, which I don't understand that one either. But regardless, I don't think we need stroke and distance at every course in the country or even an option at courses. I don't think that you need to ever worry about showing up at a random C tier and the TD, because to be honest with you, TDs in general, they're amazing. They're great. They do so much for the sport. It's a thankless job. I do not want to ever bad talk a TD. But there are some TDs that just aren't good.
They'll
TDs.
make your life miserable.
Yeah, they'll make your life miserable. They'll also, sometimes the TD thinks that they're a course designer when they're not.
Yeah.
And I could see there being bad TDs across the country that now they have the option for stroke and distance. They're like, oh, man.
We're going to make this course impossible.
Yeah, I want
90.
rec players to be shooting 13 over every round.
Yeah.
Like, no. Okay, that's not what we want by any means. That's a horrible decision, because then that might be the first time a player comes out to a disc golf tournament, and it's definitely going to be their last.
It's best if they're at least advancing.
That is not growing the sport.
Yeah.
But on the pro side, I do think it would be good. But like you had mentioned, I don't think there's any need to implement this until there is some type of qualification for the Pro Tour.
Mm-hmm.
We do not want Northwood's 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, and however many Pro Tour events there are where there's 7+ hour rounds.
Yeah.
And that would happen, because if you take Lake Eureka and bring back stroke and distance at Lake Eureka at Ledgestone, it's not going to be pretty, because the first people out are already taking a long time to play that course. But then you add in the factor of you throw OB, so you have to re-tee. There's multiple holes.
Yeah.
That I've been out there and played, and I could throw 7 practice shots, and 5 of them might be OB, because it's a demanding shot.
Right.
And so in that scenario, now instead of advancing and moving up, whatever, me as a player who shouldn't be qualified for the Pro Tour, I'm now taking 8 shots off the tee or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And now the backups are horrible. So should stroke and distance eventually happen? I think yes. I think it should be a mixture between stroke and distance and normal OB.
Right. It's not like we're saying to cancel normal OB.
No, I think this should be a decision thing, and both can even be on the same hole.
Yeah.
Maybe like if you go OB left, it's normal OB. If you go OB right, it's stroke and distance. I don't know how it works. It depends on the hole.
Yeah, that's a way where you can like take there's an easier line right, but if you miss right, it's stroke and distance, and the harder line is left, but if you take it, it's soft OB. So like,
yeah, it adds more strategy.
It's so much more to course design. It's so subtle.
Yeah. But again, I do not think this should happen until there's a qualification process for the Pro Tour. Mm-hmm. Whenever that may happen, it might never happen. If it never happens, I don't think stroke and distance should come back in, because I think that would do more harm for the sport than good. But once the players who are on the Pro Tour all deserve to be on the Pro Tour and are all actually very good professional disc golfers, then add it in. Because if you give a professional disc golfer 2 or 3 shots at hitting a fairway, they're going to hit it one of those 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I think that is something. I think that's something that, as the sport continues to grow, it should be added to the Pro Tour. Should it ever be in C tiers? I don't really know. Maybe that's a decision that comes way down the line. But
maybe like one hole, and it's like.
See, the thing is, once you allow it on one hole, then that means that like it can be taken advantage of. That's my whole thing. Is I don't know if maybe once it's been on the Pro Tour enough that players and course designers fully understand how to use it and how not to use it.
I'm just saying it would have to be very occasional.
That's what I'm saying. I think if you just gave people a wild card, do whatever you want with stroke and distance, it would mess our sport up so bad. So that's why I'm like, is it a good idea? Yeah, but let's be very careful about how we're implementing this, because this is something that could make the average disc golfer's life absolutely miserable if it got outside of the Pro Tour.
Well, yeah, and maybe it's like stroke and distance, but after your third shot, you go to a drop zone.
So like a USVGC type.
Right. Maybe that's the way to make it a little more beginner friendly and control the backups. And you only do it on short par 3s, to where if they do go to the drop zone, they're literally jump putt, laying up and tapping out. That's it.
Yeah.
Instead of throwing more shots.
Yeah. So the second half of this was, should how far you throw OB bring different penalties? Which, after talking to Brody, this is kind of true to what he was thinking, but not really. What he was originally talking about was a scenario where I believe he was watching coverage and a player went aggressive on a par 4. And I believe that they hit early. They weren't OB. They hit early and dropped to where they were in a bad spot, but they were safe. So it was a bad shot, safe in the fairway. Went to throw their second shot and went aggressive again, trying to go for the green, trying to save their birdie. Ends up hitting a tree. in a horrible spot, but inbounds, but then it kicks them out of bounds. Because that tree kicked them out of bounds, they got to advance to the drop zone because all of them advanced to the drop zone, which allowed them to have a very easy up and down. So what Brody was saying was basically like, because that drop zone was there, it allowed this player to get up and down easily for, I guess, is that a singular bogey?
Yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah,
drop
easy
zones
bogey.
can be bailouts sometimes. I've seen holes on courses that literally your best option was to turn around and launch it OB off the tee pad and go to the drop zone.
So let me explain. Okay, well, first off, Brody was saying if he would have hit the tree and dropped, there was no way he was getting up and down for a 5. Is what Brody was saying. As to the drop zone, this might be before your time at Collegiate Nationals. But
no, I was there. The one they had to move the drop zone because it was too easy.
No.
That happened one year where the drop zone was so easy.
Was it at Steady Ed?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It was like a par 5 or something.
Yeah.
And the drop zone was so easy that people were taking bogeys in this hole all day. But if you just yeeted the thing out of bounds on purpose, you had a really decent shot at up and down for par. Your worst score was bogey. And literally, we had to call in John Baker, I believe it was, who literally moved the drop zone mid-round because it was that much of a problem.
So that happened. That must have happened. If this is the same hole, that happened after I played it because I was on.
We were the ones that brought it up. Our card.
I was on the card with Jeff Corns.
Okay.
It was Liberty. It might have even been in my singles round. I think it was in our doubles round though. It was Liberty and Oregon, and we got to that hole, and I was talking to Jeff about it. There's a several card backup. And I was like, read these rules. Like, are we reading this right? This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, you throw OB, you advance to the drop zone.
And the drop zone's like...
It's like a jump
300 feet up the fairway or further.
I was like, it's around the corner. You're never getting... Like, I'm not getting there in 2 shots.
Yeah.
Is the thing. And I was like, am I crazy for our doubles team just chucking this OB directly to my left?
Well, that's what our doubles team literally did. We were like, we're going to go for it on our first drive. And if it's not good, our second shot... Well, I'm not sure why I didn't do that. That was dumb.
You
were defiant.
Yeah. No, literally, Jeff and I were talking. And we were like, we want to exploit this rule.
Yeah.
So they have to change it. So Liberty and Oregon, we both just turned sideways, 90 degree, and literally there was like a swamp down there. You couldn't get the disc back.
Yeah.
We both just took discs out of our bag we didn't care about, launched them.
Yeah.
Since we were both OB, we didn't even have our partners throw. We just said we're taking that.
Yeah.
Both went up to the drop zone. Both took our tap in
pars. We were the card I think that had to move it. But yeah, it was basically because the drop zone was so far up the fairway. And it was such a tight, like nasty par 5.
It's because they didn't expect you to go OB off your drive. They thought your OB would be like your second or third shot.
Right, but they did that wrong. If anything, you have to have 2 drop zones or something.
Yeah, which we just exploited that. But regardless, that's where Brody was more coming from. But I do think it's an interesting idea of like,
almost 2 cuts of OB.
There's this line, so this line is just normal OB, and then like 50 feet out is a stroke and distance OB.
Right.
So like if you
a little bit OB, you take it from there.
Yeah, if you threw a good shot and it just kind of trickles OB, you take it like normal disc golf OB rules.
Yeah.
If you just sky one and it's an absolute horrendous shot, you're rethrowing.
Yeah.
Is that a good or bad idea?
I think it's cool. The only thing about it, the only thing about it is disc golf OB, like, there's that notion of like if you throw a shot that's almost perfect and it nicks a tree, you're kicking way further left than if you threw a worse shot and hit it dead on.
Yeah.
So it's still like kind of unfair. So that's my hesitation with that rule.
Yeah.
Also, it would maybe be difficult with the spacing of holes being next to each other how to do more than one OB line. But that's on open courses where it's more open fairways and there's not really tree kicks in mind, I like it. I think I like it on certain holes. See, USDGC has probably some holes that would work on.
I don't think I like it at all. And here's why. Because the initial idea of it, I'm like, oh, that kind of makes sense. But then I started thinking of application of this, right? And the perfect application where it makes sense is what I just explained. You throw a good shot, it skipped, it rolled OB.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be like stroke and distance. I'm rethrowing, but I threw a good shot. Yeah. Versus someone who just skied it and it went 50 feet OB, they're rethrowing. That scenario makes sense, but I feel like that scenario would be like the least amount it's used. I feel like where it would end up being used is where is that line going to be defined? So if it's like, let's say it's 50 feet, then I could throw just as bad a shot and end up 40 feet. And I'm playing from where I went out of bounds. And then you threw the same shot as me, but like 2 degrees higher and you went 50 feet and now you're rethrowing.
Right.
So then it's still like a
that line is still
yeah,
there.
because it has to be an actual line.
Yeah, I would say this one is like kind of unnecessary.
Yeah, and there's also the fact of like now let's say that you get some type of nasty roll away, and you throw a great shot, you hit the pin, it stands up and it rolls 80 feet OB, and then you're like versus a guy who threw it nowhere close to the basket, but now he has a putt from circle's edge and you're rethrowing. I think I think the second line just makes it too gimmicky. The idea at first, it sounds cool, it sounds great. It's like, yeah, why not? That sounds fun. And then the more you think about all the ways that you could be screwed as a player, and like you could literally be screwed out of championships because of it, I think it just adds another level of gimmick to disc golf that we don't need. I think that if we want to go 2 lines, the 2 lines are either OB or that same line is stroke and distance. There's not 2 lines on one hole ever. So I think it's either like you have this line that is, if we want to go colors, like red's OB because that seems to be the color in disc golf, and white is stroke and distance or something like that, where it's just the color it's painted with, the stakes on the Pro Tour. Those are the 2. But again, I don't think any of this is implemented until there's a qualification process.
Right.
I think that's the key with so much of this is there's a lot that you can do on the Pro Tour. You could go smaller baskets. You could change the, circle size. There's a lot. But I think that the best players need to be the only players playing those events before a lot of these changes that would make disc golf harder go in.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's a crucial change. But with that being said, let's move on to our next segment, a crowd favorite, Trevor's Trivia. What do you got for me today?
This is a new one. We've got a little leaderboard game here today.
Okay.
Basically, I think I got 7 of them. I'm going to give you a top 4 of like the finishing players in an event. Now, this is only from 2017 through 2020, so you're not really going to have to stretch too far. It would be impossible. I'm going to give you the top 4 players, like how they finished, and you're going to try and guess the event that I am naming.
That's going to suck, but let's do it.
If you're really stumped, I will give you the year to try and help you out.
Okay.
So, the very first event, I'll go from first to fourth. Calvin Heimberg, Paul McBeth, Garrett Gerthy, Chris Dickerson.
Jonesboro.
When?
This year.
Correct.
Yeah.
1 for 1. Impressive.
That was the easy one.
Okay. Next one. Calvin Heimberg, Eagle McMahon, Paul McBeth, Drew Gibson.
Calvin and Eagle battled it out somewhere? It's got to be this year. No, it's Las Vegas Challenge last year, 2019.
No, it's a good guess, though.
Dang.
It might actually be a very similar finish. I didn't look at that one. This one is from this year.
What's Calvin's other Pro Tour win?
It's kind of a sneaky one. Early in the year.
He won Jonesboro.
It's very early in the year.
Didn't win Waco.
Probably the earliest.
Did he win Memorial?
Yeah.
It's Memorial?
Memorial. Kind of forget about that, huh?
Did.
All right. That was a tough one. This one.
I liked my Las Vegas. I thought I just blew your mind with that. And then
that
you
was a
looked at
really
me
good
like,
guess.
No, and I was like,
this
dang
one
it.
is really tough. We got Paul McBeth, Greg Barsby, Simon Lizotte, Nate Doss. And it can't be any earlier than 2017.
So Paul Barsby second.
Yeah, Simon, then Nate Doss. This is a tough one.
Nate Doss. Green Mountain Championships, 2017.
Yeah, it's 2017 European Open.
Oh, gosh, yeah, no.
That's a tough one.
I was trying to think of where I've seen Nate Doss play. I knew he always played Green Mountain Championships because he was good friends with the TD.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure past that.
Next one, we have Ricky Wysocki, Paul McBeth, Simon Lizotte, and Johnny McRae.
This is the Augusta Worlds 2017.
Wow. So good.
I was there.
Yeah,
I knew
that's impressive.
Because Johnny popped off.
Yeah, he did. That was impressive. All right, this one is pretty interesting. Paul McBeth, Kevin Jones, Zachariah Johnson, Calvin Heimberg.
Where did Zachariah Johnson pop off? USDGC 2018.
2019 D-Glow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was thinking Zachariah has had some good USDGCs. Kevin Jones went through that span where you didn't hear his name all year, and then he popped off at USDGC for like 2 or 3 years in a row. And so I was like, Paul won 2015. Was it 2018? Is the other one Paul won USDGC? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Did I at least get that right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, whatever.
Yeah, this one we got Nate Sexton, Chris Dickerson, Cam Colglazer, and Reed Frescura.
What the heck?
Important to note that, like, this event wasn't just like full of nobodies. Very much full of somebodies.
That's what I'm wondering if it's when Sexton won USDGC. But I feel like there were some other names up there. I know the year Sexton won, Paul wasn't near the top. Was Ricky, though. And what year even was that? Sexton win in 2016? I'm going to go 2016 USDGC.
2018 Ledgestone Insurance Open.
Oh, I forgot Sexton even won that event.
Yeah.
Dang.
That was a sneaky
I was
one.
trying to think of like Sexton's wins, and all I could think of was USDGC. I couldn't tell you another tournament he won.
That's a tough one. All right, last one.
Man, that was a good one.
Adam Hammes, Paul Macbeth, Austin Hannum, Eagle McMahon.
Dang. Adam Hammes. What did he beat him in? I want to say it's the 2019 Hall of Fame Classic.
Nope. It is 2019. It is the Wintertime Open.
Oh, I forgot about that. Dang. Dang it.
Not your best showing.
No, I was thinking, so 2019, I was thinking that when Adam Hammes just popped off on Jomez coverage and was hitting every putt you could think of at the Hall of Fame Classic.
Yeah.
I forgot Wintertime Open was even an event.
I was going to pick the 2018 Wintertime, and then I remembered that Lance won.
Yeah, I would have got that. The second you said Lance Brown, I've been like Wintertime Open.
Yeah, I know.
Dang, dude.
It's a tough one.
I'm ashamed of myself. I feel like I should have known more of those.
They're tricky because disc golf has a lot of similar finishes. I mean, there were the long timers like Paul, Ricky.
Yeah, that's
Paul.
what I was scared of. Is you're gonna be like Paul,
So that's
Ricky,
why
and then two other players would be like.
I tried to pick ones that like had more signature wins or guys that were like on leaderboard that aren't usually there.
I forgot Adam Hammes won Wintertime.
Yeah. Didn't he win wearing a foundation hat, or was that?
No, that was that was Hall of Fame Classic. He was banging those putts in a foundation hat, left and right.
Heck yeah.
Every time he would jump putt, the foundation logo would just like pop off his head, and the little hat would fall backwards. And everyone was talking about the hat. The hat, man. We almost made a commercial out of it. We thought about it, but we decided not to. We were very tempted, though. All right. Since this is the last show of 2020, we're moving into 2021. I think it's a good time to kind of look back on 2020 and see kind of what the year showed us. What did 2020 teach us in disc golf? I think it's more so it just kind of exploited some things, right?
Yeah.
First and foremost, 2020, I'm gonna dub it the year of social media, because I think this is largely in part, not even largely in part, don't even know if those two words can possibly go together. This is because of Brody Smith. I think what Brody did was show us how important a player's social media is compared to their play.
Right.
Because, obviously Brody's name was big before coming into disc golf. When he first came into disc golf, there was the huge wave of people who were like freaking out, this is sick. And there was the huge wave of people who are like, this guy's going to be here for 2 months and he's going to quit and he's never going to do anything in disc golf. Those two people pretty much still exist. You know what I mean? But I don't think anyone can argue with the fact that Brody showed social media sells plastic. Period.
It's true. Yeah.
So when you're looking at a manufacturer, if I'm a manufacturer and I'm looking to sponsor a player, what am I sponsoring them for? To sell plastic.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
It's true.
I want them to be a good representation of my brand. I want them to play well with my discs. There's a lot I want in a player. I don't want some jerk that moves plastic. But at the end of the day, I want a player that moves plastic.
Right.
And I think that 2020, more than any year in the past, has shown us how big social media is going to be to the future of the sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I don't know if you agree with me on this one, but I think that is why, and I think pretty much solely that is why Ezra Aderhold is such a big signing.
Yeah, I think Ezra is still pretty young and seems to be talented, but I think he has way more hype because he's become popular on the media side, and people he's very likable because of that. People know him because of that. There are a lot of guys who are better than him and probably just as young, but nobody's talking about.
It's like the Casey White is another player we were talking about.
Yeah.
Because of Simon's vlogs, Casey has become popular to where he is now worth more to Discmania than a lot of players that are better than him.
And it's not too difficult as long as you're good enough to where you're touring and you're able to use media to establish more of a personal connection with your fans to where they feel like they know you and kind of can get inside your life a little bit. It does wonders.
Well, that's what I think. I personally think Ezra Aderhold is a Gary Vaynerchuk fan. Never talked to the guy before in my life. But here's why. Because Gary preaches hard, like responding to comments, you know, getting into as many conversations as you can and dropping your 2 cents. He calls it his $1.80 strategy. You go to 90 posts a day, drop your 2 cents in on those 90 posts. That's how you grow on social media. $1.80. Ezra, though, is very engaging with his community, is why I say that. If you go to his like YouTube channel, there was a period where every single comment that was coming in, he was responding to.
Right.
And so I think that is crucial because it is doing exactly what you were just saying.
Yeah,
it's
literally
building that connection to where people now feel like they almost know him.
Right. One interaction, if you're like a professional disc golfer, one little respond to a comment, interaction, whatever, like it can create a lifelong fan.
Yeah, exactly.
It does not take much. And there's not a lot of players who, like, we understand that like disc golfers have Instagrams and they have Twitters, but like the ones that are really using it, and YouTube, it seems to be a very like big outlet. Like the one YouTube seems to be more so than like Instagram, like what is being harnessed by disc golfers and like really being effective. But yeah, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think that one of the key things is players have to find what works for them.
Yeah. We
talked about this some last week where Austin Hannum, Twitter is what's working for him. It might be working against him more so than working for him, but regardless, he's growing. And I think that's a key thing. Ezra, YouTube is working for him. I think that's a big thing for players is they might not be able to be in front of a camera and be comfortable with it. They might be more of a better photographer and be able to do better on Instagram. They might be better at just writing. They might be able to start a blog.
Yeah.
There's a lot of outlets, but regardless, I think it's pretty evident that social media this year has shown to be absolutely crucial to your value as a player.
Right.
The second thing I think this year showed us is that the Pro Tour is where I believe all of our chips need to be for professional disc golf.
Yeah, they've stepped up to the point now, especially coverage was the biggest question mark, I think. I don't think other than that they had really done a bad job with things. But their coverage, live coverage, improved to the point where I think they know, even though they're not perfect, they definitely know how to get there, or at least what they're striving for the correct things, I think. To where I've been pretty confident and I've liked their decision making and I like a lot of the things they've released and that they're trying to accomplish. So I'm confident in saying, yeah, the Pro Tour I think it's the right time to kind of choose them as like the ones that we're backing.
Well, yeah, I think that's mainly because the National Tour, unfortunately due to COVID this year, was canceled. And so I think that put all the eggs into the Pro Tour basket and was like, what can you do? And they stepped up to the plate, and I think they provided a better product than the National Tour ever has.
National Tour had a big head start. They just they kind of just got complacent with it.
Well, I think the fact of the matter was that the National Tour, for the right reason, was never the PDGA's main focus.
Well, yeah, that's also true.
It should never have been the PDGA's main focus. Yeah. So I think that's why the Pro Tour, being the Pro Tour's only focus, is able to be so much better. Yeah. Because the National Tour just was never going to be able to do that because the PDGA...
They got a lot more things to worry
about. They have a lot more that they should be worrying about. A professional disc golf tour should never be on the PDGA's radar.
It's not a knock on the PDGA.
No, it's just that should not be one of their responsibilities on their plate they're focusing on. The third thing that I think 2020 has kind of shown us a little bit, it's not the first year it's shown us, but it kind of has exposed it a little bit more, is that there's more parity on the disc golf, on the MPO side. And I would say that parity's here to stay.
Yeah, I think the days of one person dominating the sport like Paul and Ricky kind of were doing.
And Ken Climo.
And Climo. I think it's pretty much over. We're obviously still going to see really good seasons from players. You know, that's obviously still going to happen, but I don't think the days of like just kind of knowing who's going to win they're already over.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing for the sport.
Oh, certainly.
I think that's a huge thing because if you go back to Climo era, obviously Climo's the man. You know, going into a weekend, Climo's the guy to beat or probably the guy to win.
Yeah.
You fast forward to the Paul and Ricky era, I think there was a few year stretch where if Paul and Ricky were both at an event, one of them won.
Every time, yeah.
Every single time. 2015, if Paul was at an event and you were a betting person, there was a solid chance that if you put your money on Paul, you were winning that.
Yeah.
Because I think he literally won.
He won like 20 events.
Yeah, he won all 5 majors, and his worst finish was 3rd.
Yeah.
Like the 2015 dominant stretches like that, I don't think we'll ever see again.
No.
A full season like that, even a full span of seasons, even between 2 players like Paul and Ricky. I don't think we're ever going to see that again.
Could still put together a season where his worst finish was 3rd. It would just take some really, really amazing golf.
I don't think it'll happen.
I don't think it will either. I'm saying I think it's still he's still got like a 1 maybe 2 year window where if he was playing out of his mind, I think he could.
I think he's good enough.
That's what I'm saying.
But I think that other players are getting too good. To where you're telling, because if you go back to 2015,
not quite yet.
If you go back to 2015,
I'm not saying he's going to win 20 events. I'm saying worst finish top is
yeah,
3rd.
I'm saying no. I don't think that's possible.
I think it could happen. For like 1 more year probably.
No.
Right,
like there is
enough.
No doubt in my mind.
I think the odds are significantly against it, let me say. I mean, I'm saying there's probably a very small percentage chance it happens. I'm saying it could happen because I think he is good enough.
Well, yeah, and lightning could strike the camera right now and freaking burn our battery, but it's
higher
not going to happen.
Than that. Higher percentage than that. 10%.
10%? You're insane. Heck no. Because here's the thing. If you look at 2015, the players he was going against, it's not a knock on those players, but the golf he had to play to beat all.
How many strokes is there most events between 1st and 3rd? A lot in disc golf.
Is it that much on the MPO
It's
side?
getting smaller, but it's usually 1st and 2nd, and then between 1st and 3rd, there's still. That's what I'm
like
saying.
5 strokes.
I'm saying there's a big enough cushion that if you're playing good disc golf, you can sneak in there.
There's not. Yeah, you can sneak in there. Paul, every tournament he shows up to, I would pick Paul probably in my top 3.
How many?
I don't think
I
he's
want to know
doing
how
it
many
every
finishes he
single
had
tournament.
outside the top 5 this year.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
Please, how many finishes do you have outside the top 5?
I'm gonna say 4.
That's not very many.
There's only 15 events.
I know. I'm just saying, and he didn't even play his best golf this year.
I'm just saying, it's no knock on Paul or anyone else.
It's doable.
It's not doable.
It is doable.
It's not, because every other player, that is saying that every single weekend he is beating either Ricky, Calvin, Chris, Kevin Jones, and I mean, there's plenty of other players. Nico could sneak up there. Double G could sneak up there.
I think he can.
Every single weekend. He's beating. Basically, he's only letting.
I think
Calvin,
Heimberg. I think Heimberg could do something similar. I think he's
There's too many good players nowadays.
They're just consistent.
There's too many good players nowadays. That is not happening.
Ricky could probably also do something similar.
No one
if
could
he
do it.
got back to his game as well.
Why can I not find Paul on here?
It doesn't exist.
I searched his PDGA number. Okay, here we go.
You know
2020
his PDGA number? That's disgusting.
Outside of what? The top 5?
Yeah.
It's only 1.
Okay.
But there's 1, 2, 3, 4 fifth place finishes.
Okay, but I'm just saying he only finished 1 time outside the top 5, and
you're telling me the top 3?
Only 2 spots.
Trevor, those are a massive 2 spots.
I don't think so.
Because I mean, outside the top
I'm just
3,
saying,
there's 1,
let's
2,
not act like it's the same
3,
percentage
4.
as getting struck by lightning when the man finished inside the top 3 in all but one of it, or top 5 in all but one of his events this year, and he wasn't.
Top 5 and top 3 are 2 completely different things.
And he wasn't playing his best golf.
I would take you on top 5. I think top 5 is doable.
I said top 3
is
because
not.
if he's playing his best golf, that's what I said.
But you have to be playing your best golf every single weekend throughout the entire year.
He's capable.
In
of that.
twice the tournaments. This is only 14 events.
He's capable of doing that. He's done it before.
But 2015, I would argue he was not playing his best golf week in and week out.
2015?
Yeah.
That's a tough one to argue.
I don't think he was.
He was close to it.
If he was playing his best golf is when he was blowing players out in 2015.
That was most events.
That was most events. But that's what I'm saying. The events that he came in
so
third
like he'll
place,
win when he's playing his best golf, and when he's not quite there, he'll finish
I think
third.
when he's playing his best golf, he's in the top 3.
When he's playing his best golf, he wins.
When he plays his very, very best.
That's what I would say is best. You don't need to say very best. That's like a double.
No, there's
positive.
2 different things.
There's best.
It's 2 different
best
things.
Best is best.
But
you wouldn't say somebody's best and they're not first.
I would say at this point that if Paul played at his best,
grammar school.
I would say if Paul played at his best, there are players right now that could still beat him.
At their best? No, don't think so.
Yeah.
Because then you go to, if they're both playing, I don't think anybody outside of Eagle is more arm talented than Paul, and Eagle is so far behind him mentally. And nobody else is more arm talented than Paul.
I'm just saying, there is literally a 0% chance. I'll go on the record. I'll bet you something criminal. There is a 0% chance that Paul finishes every single tournament in the top 3 this year.
What odds would you give me? I'm actually curious.
I don't know how odds work that well.
Like, if you were to give me 50 to 1, if I bet $1, you'd pay me out $50, basically.
It would depend on what you're putting in. Like, if you put $1 in, I would pay you 50.
That's not how odds work.
Well, yeah, but if you put $1,000 in, I'm not giving you $50,000.
I'm not okay. If I were to bet 20 bucks, what odds would you give me on that $20 bet?
So you're putting $20 in.
Your odds have to be good enough for me to tempt me to bid that $20. So if you just say, "Well, I'll give you 2 to 1," I'm not going to bet it.
500.
500 to 1?
No, I would give you $500. I don't know what the ratio is to that.
So that's what, 20 to 1?
Is that math?
It's 20 times. No, wait.
No,
that's
more
not
than
right.
25.
What is it?
No.
Is it 20?
How dumb are we?
We're so bad at math.
Okay, 500 divided by 20.
It's
25 to 1.
25 to 1 odds.
Yeah.
You give me 25 to 1 odds. Like that's
I'm just saying
that's a no-brainer investment for me.
I am willing to put put up $500 that Paul does not finish in the top 3 at every single event this year.
Yeah, I mean it sounds great from your side, but from my side it's a no-brainer. $20 to maybe lose $20, but maybe pay out 500.
Yeah, okay. You want to shake on it? Yeah.
I just can't believe it.
I want $20. I can take it in the form of Chick-fil-A.
All right.
You buy me a Chick-fil-A lunch at the end of next year.
Sure.
All right, cool.
Paul,
I can't wait to get my 12 count.
So we'll pay it out at the end of the year.
No, as soon as he comes in 4th.
Yeah. Oh my. Wait, I already shook on it, but like out of good honor, will you give me the contingency that injuries like DNFs do
Paul's
not
DNF'd one time ever.
I'm just saying like that.
Yeah, if
like,
he DNFs, sure.
So like he has to play all the rounds.
If he finishes an event and he has a tweaked ankle and he comes in 10th, that still counts.
Fair enough. It's gonna hurt if that's the only time it happens.
It's not gonna be the only time. That's what I'm saying. You're crazy. You're absolutely crazy.
Am I?
Disc golfers have gotten way too good.
Would you put up $20 if you had a 5% chance of winning $500?
He played 14 events. Yeah, I would.
Exactly.
But he played 14 events, right?
That's what I just did.
This year, only 14 events, and 1, 2, 3, 4 of them he finished outside the top 3.
You're letting the reason I keep you talking is because I'm gonna play this podcast clip to him in his sleep. I'm gonna have it on loop on his
He'll
car
probably
ride.
listen to this.
He's gonna be so fired up.
He'll listen to this before every
money.
single tournament.
Paul's got my back. He's gonna win. He's
what
gonna
I'm
win
saying
this money.
Is the difference between 1st and 4th could realistically at one tournament be like 2 shots.
We're gonna see that man with a chance to win, and he's gonna lay up to make sure he comes in 3rd to win me that $500. That's what's gonna happen. Heck yeah!
I can't believe you just.
I'm so
you're
rich.
Crazy. On the other side of the coin, a bet that I would not take is that Paige Pierce will not come in the top 3 because 2020 has shown us that without European players, Paige is dominant.
The field is too weak.
Paige is dominant.
They need them back.
Yeah. Once European players are back in, then we can start talking about some parity on the FPO side. Until then, I mean, week in and week out, Paige goes into an event and you're surprised if Paige doesn't win. I think Haley King can challenge her some. Katrina Allen obviously has proven she can challenge her some.
We're making our picks. I'm going to pick Paige to win every single event.
Yeah, absolutely.
At this point, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, so if 2020 has confirmed anything, it's that Paige
she's not
Pierce
player of
is
the
still
year.
dominant.
So,
well,
according
yeah.
to the PGA.
Well, I think that's just Paige's fault because she should have played more A tiers. Yeah. At the end of the day, what was she thinking?
If you're not playing the Barnyard Kentucky Open presented by, John's Chicken Shop, then what are you doing? Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, A tiers are great. Good for Katrina Allen to be able to go out and play some A tiers, but there's no way that you're telling me with a straight face that Paige Pierce is not the player of the year this year. There's no way. I would like to see the guy at the PDGA that hands her that award and look him in the eyes and say, tell me Paige doesn't deserve this award.
We'll have our stats guy that just hopped in our email, send you a real interesting email about it.
Bro, like, I got nothing against Katrina Allen. She's a great player. She's just not the 2020 player of the year.
Sure isn't.
Foundation, we're going to create our player of the year.
Yeah.
It'll
pay him $1 million.
I don't know about all that. We'll give you the $20 that Trevor wagered.
$20 for the Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, we'll buy you a 12-count meal as our player of the year.
Yeah.
All right, time to wrap up the show. Was not expecting that little rant, but sometimes when Trevor says something dumb enough, it requires it.
I can't wait. What am I gonna? I'm gonna buy a PS5.
Trevor,
the $500.
You're gonna be buying me Chick-fil-A, and it's going to be on our Instagram story by April. or May.
You're crazy. Paul's going off this year.
He might go off, but he's still going to finish in 4th or 5th.
No, not this year. His putt's back. He told me today. He came in here and he threw a putt and a basket. And he went and he said with that wry smile on his face, he's like, "See, I don't miss anymore." And he had this.
You know how many times I've heard
he
that?
had this twinkle in his eye.
You know how many times I've heard that?
That just said to me, "He's not missing this year. I'm gonna bet $20 on him."
You're insane.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not really that insane. I should have made it like a 10 to 1, $100 to 1,000.
No, I would never take it.
Yeah, I know you wouldn't.
I would have been murdered by my wife. But continue.
That's fine. All right, it's time for make that call.
Thanks, man.
Make that call. All right. Here's your scenario. I'm putting you back in a scenario. They're way more fun.
I like being in the scenarios.
Okay, so picture this. You have finally made it. You have qualified for the USDGC.
I love that all the scenarios involve things that would never happen to me. Like, you're in first. What?
No, this one's even better.
I qualified for USDGC.
You're at USDGC. You've qualified. Opening round. You bring a friend. We'll just say it's me. You bring me to caddy for you. I'm caddying for you.
Yeah.
All right. Holes 1 through 4, you're popping off. You're 2 down. All right.
This is familiar.
You're feeling great. You step up to hole 5.
Okay.
Here comes the problems.
What?
Hole 5, your 3 best drivers all find their way into the bottom of the lake. Your 3 best.
That's a shame.
Yeah,
Off the tee?
No,
Or just throughout the hole?
It doesn't matter. That's irrelevant.
Yeah.
By the time you leave hole 5, you're down 3 drivers.
They were the good ones.
You're stepping up to hole 6. You're freaking out. You don't know what to do. You hand me a $20 bill, and you say, "Hunter, I need you to go to the pro shop. I need you to buy me another destroyer because I don't know what I'm gonna do. I need a disc that's gonna be overstable."
Right.
I will go, okay, take off running back to the pro shop, run in, find you the most overstable destroyer I can, come back, hand it to you. Once I get back with this new disc in the middle of the round, can you use that disc this round?
This is interesting. First of all, I like to mention 2 things. Number 1, if I'm covert enough about it, nobody's ever knowing. Not in a million years are they knowing. You're sneaking that thing under your jacket. I'm just going to quickly mark it, make sure it's legal. Nobody knows. How will they know?
Okay, but they know.
Number 2, I like to mention that my first disc golf tournament, the only one I ever won, so hopefully I'm not about to get my only win revoked by people campaigning against me. I bought a G-Star Rhino in between rounds and proceeded to throw it in the next round. So I may be about to lose my only career win. Please don't take it from me. It's the only one I have. I want to say there's just not a lot of rules on. This is a tough one.
One thing to remember is this is the middle of the round. You're on hole 6.
Right.
Can you add a brand new disc to your bag? Hole 6.
You're allowed to literally throw other people's discs, which is why I want to say yes, you are able to do that.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what pushed me over the edge. You could throw other people's discs.
So the PDGA says yes, you're allowed to add discs to your bag after the round has started. You just have to make sure the errand of getting the disc does not distract other players and that you don't violate the excessive time rule. The best time to do this is in between holes.
So thank goodness I'm not about to get my only win revoked.
Yeah, because that scenario I just painted you in,
it happened.
Literally happened.
I think I remember telling you that, but it was very faint.
Lance Brown.
What did he get you?
He didn't get me. He was at the USDGC, hole 5, ate his breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He slips me, I think it was $25, and literally told me, I need a new destroyer. And I ran to the pro shop, bought him the most purple destroyer I could find, brought back, and he lost it 2 holes later. But hey.
That's funny. He lost it on the one with the sand?
I figured
Was it
maybe he lost it. No, because that's the next hole. He lost it somewhere on the back nine.
Okay.
It might have been the bush hole. It might have thrown it in the bushes and never found it again.
That's funny.
But yeah, that man.
That's so Lance.
Yeah, it was his first year at USDGC. He was nervous.
He qualified the Monday qualifying.
Yeah,
he was awesome.
In a playoff.
Yeah,
it was big time.
Sick.
Yeah, and then that happened.
That's clutch.
But yeah, I thought that was a pretty funny scenario.
Yeah, that is a good.
Paint you in. All right, well, thank you guys so much for hanging with us all of 2020. It's been one heck of a ride. It's been a wild year. Hopefully you've enjoyed all of the content that we've put out and enjoyed the podcast here. We have some plans to change up the podcast a little bit in 2021, so stay tuned to all of our social media and Patreon for information about all of that. If you haven't already checked out our Discord, please do so. We interact a lot in the podcast chat and podcast suggestions there. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, we'd really appreciate you guys leaving us a review over there. We read all of them. And if you're watching this on YouTube, comment down below if you haven't already, kind of letting us know what you think of this episode, some different ideas you have, anything like that. And again, we read them all. We really appreciate all the feedback. And we will talk to you guys in the new year next week.